right before Christmas, we are finishing the week with very strong rallies for corn and even better rallies for soybeans. And the one that's going to explain all of that to us is Jerry Gidel from Midland Research from Chicago, right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, we are here before Christmas, and what is explaining those very strong rallies, foremost for soybeans.
Well, interestingly enough, we talked about this last Friday that we hit a very technical and important milestone there with our close over $12 in the nearby January beans. And the issues that have been plaguing Argentina have continued here with their strikes on, protests, things of that nature. Farmers aren't making movements into the export channels. We're not getting things shipped out. And so the markets took heed of that. And then the weather situations continue to, there's rains, but it's maybe not as good as it should be in Argentina. Maybe it rained in different spots in Mato Grosso, but boy, we could sure use some more, that type of thing. And then, of course, we had some very, very strong export sales here, or excuse me, export shipments on Monday, export shipments that were up to over 90 million again in the U.S., and that's really kind of startled everybody and got this market really rolling here earlier this week. And we're kind of continuing on here with reports out of Argentina today, specifically that it was a very poor crushing period for the month of November, and they anticipate it to be even lower now than the 3 million metric tons that was out last month. And so that puts more ideas that the demand is have to come to the U.S.
Yes, with those Argentinian farmers storing a lot of beans, the meal was split between Brazil and the US this year.
Right, exactly, and that's helping our crush statistics, which is, you kind of remember the statistics we had earlier this month on the NOPA scenario indicated our third record crush here in the U.S. on a monthly basis for September, October, November. And it doesn't look like the things have really slowed down here in this month at all. And so those type of numbers helped us kind of build the base here that continues on the uncertainty of things. And the more we worry about the fact that both the domestic crush and the exports of beans in the U.S. really, because more and more psychology of what our Indian carryover stocks might be. And that's part of what's going on here. People are kind of anticipating we need to ration some supplies. And surprisingly, boy, back in May, we've had an overabundance of world opportunities from South America and here in the U.S. and that. And it's been quite surprising. We went from one teeter-totter to the next. We went from way down to way back up. And right now, I have to say that the things are still not really defined until we get a better idea what South America's crop outputs will be.
Yes, we talked about the outside, the factor, but what do you think? How much the stimulus bill is impacting the market? It seems to be one signature away from the stimulus bill to be passed.
Well, yeah. It took so long to get something to happen, and then it felt like the thing was going to be pretty well finalized here, 24 hours ago or more, and now it's been a little bit of a snag here with the person in the White House thinking that we didn't give his supporters in the United States more money. Hopefully that we don't need to put this into another craziness at this point. It's been up and down. The financial markets have, so far at least, have kind of said, wait a second, that's not going to happen. And that after this point in time, that there's going to be some kind of snag that doesn't go through. And the interesting thing about it is that it's helpful on a basic nutritional level, and that it gives a more positive thing overall. But I don't know specifically in our commodities and the grain market specifically here in the U.S. or around the world, the U.S. stimulus bill probably isn't really connected to the price of corn or soybeans, but big psychology right there. Hopefully we don't have anything come about. I realize that I'd like to have more money too if they're going to give it away, but I don't know that that's going to be the case. And to some extent, I understand why they think it might be not as needed, because we hopefully will have a vaccine that's going to help everyone around the world to be able to go back to normal, whatever that is.
And another psychological factor are the vaccines.
Oh, definitely. That's part of the reason why I think that having maybe not as robust a number as President Trump is now thinking about might be not necessary. Hopefully, particularly with the two that have been approved here in the U.S., and I think, of course, they're going to be approved in many areas around the world, or some other areas that have their own vaccines seem to be available, and that. And now hopefully there's going to be another one or two here. Wow, yeah, that's the key thing to this whole thing is we have to have people believe that this is the right thing to do, and because you can't get the thing kind of slowed down unless you have more than 50%. I'd have to say somewhere in the 60-70% is what I've seen is the needed level. Hopefully that's the case, and by summertime we can go outside and go to baseball games and go to parades and all the other things that people like to do. And at this point, let's be positive about that. And I think that's something that's a good thing to think about during these holiday periods.
Do you think that is a light at the end of the tunnel for corn prices and ethanol?
Well, that is an interesting one. The corn price right now is going, it's kind of, I'd have to say kind of following behind the soybeans. I want to say pigtailing, but I'm not sure I should say that. Anyway, it's going there. Definitely the statistics in the soybeans are the ones that are very crucial at this point. And protein always is going to take number one because that's brain food, and everybody worries about that more than it does how much starch and how much bread we have out there and how much feed we might have for animals. That's secondary in many cases. But in cases right now, we're going to be going towards some numbers here in January that I think are going to start to tighten up the U.S. carryover stock even more. And to some extent, the one thing is probably interesting in South America right now is the fact that the corn crops, both in Argentina, right now there's still some corn yet to be planted after wheat and that, but the corn that's in the ground is definitely not having very good conditions. And over in Brazil, the first crop being corn, I should say, in Paraná, Rio Grande, and that is being impacted by the current lack of moisture in the classic La Nina forecast. Now, I've had right now we haven't seen a total classic one at this point because the northern part of Brazil hasn't had the moisture it should have, and there's been erratic situations in parts of Argentina. But the same thing is that could make an interesting scenario. I don't know that we're going to see the total idea on that until we get further into the growing season in South America as to how much impact this weather has had on the crop size down there. But it's highly important. And interestingly enough, we've had a very good push. We took out the March highs here at the 440 area and moved up to generally close to 450 here. And that the previous highs on the nearby corn is around 465, 467. I think that's definitely a possibility between now and the crop report on January 12th. But I don't see the explosiveness. Beans at this point, wow, they've moved up 50 cents this week. or more. They're going to potentially go towards the $13 mark, which is halfway back in the prices we had back in 2012. And maybe in the right situation, it could go all the way to $14. There's wide open spaces here, depending on how this market gets wound up here going into the 2021 year. I'm really spreading some joy out there on prices, but at the same time, if you're a user of of feed and protein, hopefully you have your first quarter or more needs kind of covered right now. This thing is very tight and very shaky here in the soybean side of the world, and that's going to end up being a highlight of things as we go into the 2021 calendar year.
Another commodity that has seen an important rally is wheat. Do you think that is playing a factor for both corn and soybeans?
Well, interestingly enough, is that wheat's been pretty choppy, to say the least, here over the last, say 6 weeks or so. We've had all the issues cropping out of the Black Sea. First, we were going to have things stay open on exports. Then the Russians decided, no, we're going to have an export tax and reduce our outputs on things. And that kind of brought prices back down. Ukraine this week says, oh, well, we're not changing anything. So at this point, so that ended up surprisingly give us a boost. And I think the other key feature here is I think that even in Argentina here, some of the reports of the wheat harvest is pretty well winding down. Maybe there's another 10 days, 2 weeks here on it, and that it's maybe not as strong as it could be. And the other thing about it is that the wheat side of things here, I think that the higher prices of corn has also brought in the feed wheat situation around the world. We've already seen indications in China that they might be feeding more wheat and than they have in the past, and other places in the world looking at that. So that then we start to balance out the relationship between starch in corn and the starch in wheat, and gets that through. We can't feed as much wheat to animals as we can corn because of the fiber in it, but it can still provide pretty good energy if the price is right in different parts of the world on wheat. So yeah, it's joining in. And then weather here in the U.S., I'd have to say we have to keep a strong outlook on the Southwest in the U.S. and how that crop is struck. We went into the very poor ratings, and we haven't seen a lot of snow out there. So if we have any bad weather and cold weather come through, that's maybe hurt that wheat going into the winter kill and things of that nature.
So I think we are supposed to keep watching the South American weather and the U.S. weather in the coming days.
Oh, definitely. And also keep an eye on who's buying things, what's buying things. Actually, this week was kind of the interesting twist of all things. The Chinese, who had been rumored last week of buying some new crop beans, the U.S., bang, zoom, they were there in the new crop things. Now, that's real early. That doesn't tell us anything, but it really does tell us that the world is getting very conscious about what's going on here in our outputs in the U.S. and how fast we're using it. And right now, people are staring at these numbers and feeling like these supplies are disappearing faster than they want. So we might even be talking rationing. Well, we haven't talked about that term in quite some time, but I think it's going to get into our lexicon in 2021.
Yeah, so, well, I think our viewers will get a lot of fun with this video and during the weekend. Merry Christmas, sir.
Yes, well, we'll at least give them something to think about, if nothing else. And it's always good to talk, Luis. Have a great holiday season.
Thank you. You bet.